Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Mitchell, and this is Penny for a Tale. We have an exceptionally awesome guest today. We are joined by Dennis Detwiller, the author of Music from a Darker Room, which we just played earlier this week, and creative director for Arc Dream Publishing. For those who don't know, those are the people who make Delta Green.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I kind of little rolled out the red carpet for you. But do you have any introductions you want to make?
No, I mean, like I've been producing game content for so long now, I don't really remember. But I guess the most greatest hits would be like I was involved with Magic the Gathering in its birth. Hung out with the Wizard guys, created Pagan Publishing and the Unspeakable Oath, which is a
Mm.
Call of Cthulhu magazine. Then we Delta Green, and that's probably the most famous thing. But we also did games like Godlike and all the one roll engine games. Yeah, we're mostly focused on Delta Green these days because people seem to
Yeah,
really.
yeah, it's a great books. But so you're not just a writer, creative director. You also paint, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I was a professional illustrator before I did any of this game stuff. So I grew up in New York City, and I could always draw. My family, all going back a couple generations, could always draw. So I became a kind of a pro illustrator when I was 17 and 18, working inking for Marvel Comics and DC Comics, and went to college for it at School of Visual Arts. Had some really great teachers, and Maurice Sendak from Where the Wild Things Are, and Will Eisner, who
Ooh.
basically created comic books altogether. And they taught me a ton of cool shit. I hope I can say that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
This is a mature channel. You can curse all you want.
and then did that for years, book covers and such. And that's how I drifted into games, Magic and Call of Cthulhu being my obsessions. So yeah. I've always done illustration. I still do it. It's great fun.
Definitely. So you talked about doing was it superhero work and but what kind of led you to the eldritch horror that's almost the opposite of the themes of superheroes?
Oh, I love Lovecraft since I was maybe 10 or 11. I found one of those old Whalen black and white Lovecraft books where it's red and black and white, a horrible creature opening like a.
Yeah.
I was like, this is it. I want to be part of this. So I read all that stuff, and then in 1991, I think I was dating a girl from New Brunswick, New Jersey, and they had a game shop there, and they had this little magazine called The Unspeakable Oath.
Hmm.
It had this really kick-ass pen and ink drawing on the cover of it by a guy named Blair Reynolds, which is incredible. And I was like, I wonder what that is. So I bought it, and I wrote this weirdo named John Tynes
Hmm.
saying, "Oh, I want to do art for your book," and I got hired doing art for the Unspeakable Oath. And then, like a year later or something, we started working on Delta Green. So it's great.
So why did you guys decide to pursue Delta Green?
Well, John had this. Well, for one, we used to play Call of Cthulhu all the time,
Hmm.
and it always degenerated into like in Mask of Nyarlathotep, like 200 people, 200 PCs would die, and we were
Yeah.
constantly recruiting like waiters and come fight the cult to the bloody tongue waiter at the local restaurant. He'd be like, okay,
Yeah, like they do.
yeah. So John was like, I want to solve that, for modern Cthulhu. So I'm going to make up a reason that they would send more people in, and that's kind of where Delta Green came from. So that was like the ultimate idea, and then Scott Glancy was a pen pal of ours who was a lawyer and was kind of obsessed with the government and conspiracy. And you have to keep in mind this was before X Files, so
Ooh.
this was just before X Files came out on TV. So we were all mining the same material,
Hmm.
Roswell and all that. And that was a personal obsession of mine. So I started writing all this Roswell stuff with Amigo, and Glancy was writing all this historical fact mixing with Cthulhu mythos. And then John would take it all together in this kind of editor's basket and marry it all together in this beautiful, soup.
Yeah.
Um, And yeah, it was fun. It was great fun, and I dearly love working with those guys. I'm working with John right now on. He has a Delta Green book coming out called The Labyrinth, and it's his first Delta Green book in 20 years. So
What will it feature?
it's a bunch of it's really unique. What I love what he's doing. It's a bunch of new threats and new allies for Delta Green, but they're broken down into stages. So basically, it's like here's when you first meet this group. Here's when you start investigating this group. Here's how they react.
Yeah.
Here's when they're exposed. This is what happens. And it's this beautiful kind of three-act structure for each cult and friendly organization. So, for example, one of the groups is like a support group for parents of missing children,
Mm-hmm.
and it's broken down with all of its members and what. And basically, it's about the degeneration of one member there who becomes kind of aware of Delta Green, and then he becomes convinced there's like a conspiracy everywhere to steal all children. And John just does a great job of kind of making the crazy come out of these normal looking characters in a way that is really unique. So I love it.
Yeah, oh, that sounds really cool. I mean, I've always loved when games kind of put in dynamic characters. I kind of you give the advice on how they'll shift on certain actions and
Yeah,
stuff like that, and that's
yeah,
always
they're
been
not still right.
yeah.
It's like an ongoing thing. And he built it in a really clean way, so it's kind of like stage one, stage two,
Ooh.
stage three.
That
Really
sounds
cool.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm very happy with it. So I'm illustrating that right now.
So you talked about superheroes and kind of the interest of H.P. Lovecraft. Um,
Yeah.
when you're writing content now, whether it's scenarios or just the books in general, like, is that what other inspirations do you pull from?
Uh, I usually have a very clear idea going in, and I don't really know where the ideas come from. I couldn't really tell you. Usually, I usually get a very strange idea, and then I go, huh. I think about that for 2 days, and then I write it down. And then sometimes it's just a hurdle I want to clear. Music from a darkened room was. Um, I wonder what a haunted house scenario would look like in Delta Green. And the answer is apparently really frightening to most people because I get very, very many emails about it.
Yeah, it
The
is.
house.
One of my favorite parts was and for those watching, cover your ears if you're a player and are going to play it soon. Cover your ears for like 10 seconds, you'll be good. But when they hear noises from underneath the floorboards and they
Yeah,
go to investigate, and based on their willpower, the door kind of closes in on them and they're
yeah,
stuck there for what feels like 5 hours.
yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a creepy scenario. It came out. I was really happy with how it came out, and what I love about writing these scenarios is getting the feedback from the people who play them. So I guess Night Floors is probably one of my most famous, which is
Mhm.
a Carcosa King in Yellow scenario. That one and Artifact Zero is
Mhm.
probably the one I get the most complaints about because it's a really difficult scenario that just kills people. Um,
That's the
so
fun part.
yeah, if you're playing Delta Green right, that's quite fun.
Yeah,
One guy escapes to tell the tale and is wide-eyed and locked up somewhere.
exactly. Those are always the best endings. I know
Yeah, yeah.
for the group Monday, I feel like most of them won't be coming back for session
Yeah, they
two.
don't know it yet, but yeah, that's but yeah. So yeah, usually I have either an idea or a goal. The idea just comes out of nowhere, and I laugh and write it down.
From
Uh,
the eldritch horrors of the universe, it just
I
comes
hope so. It's usually
streaming
just
in.
like I forget. I was writing the whole. I'm writing a King in Yellow campaign right now for Delta Green. It's the first campaign book for Delta Green.
Ooh.
Called Impossible Landscapes, and it was supposed to be a 128-page book, and now it's approaching 160,000 words, which will make it as big as the Handler's Guide, which is 200-300 pages or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, I have that right there in the back
Yeah.
in the little box.
But I get ideas there, and there's one key idea there that I ran for Ross Payton and those guys that just like I forget Caleb got up and left the table. He was like, "What?" Like,
Oh man.
yeah. So it was fun and cool, and I knew I'd gotten to him. So whenever I have an idea like that, I'm usually I squirrel them away, and I'm usually have three of those waiting at any given time, and I just
Yeah.
try and keep that list up. So it's fun.
Yeah, so you've been talking about all these amazing moments. I'm sure everyone watching would love to kind of get an ear on into to some of these moments.
Sure.
So what is kind of like your favorite experience or moment that you've run or been a player in concerning Delta Green or even something like it?
Sure. So two jump to mind. One was when I was a player.
Mhm.
John Tynes ran a scenario called In Media Res, and I don't know if you know what that is.
Mm-mm.
In Media Res was a wonderful scenario. It's in the Unspeakable Oath, and basically it begins. He literally set us up in a room with jumpsuits, turned the lights off. You put on these jumpsuits, and then turned on the lights, and we're sitting around a table, and there's a dead guy on the table, and his face is gone, and we're all wearing, asylum jumpsuits, and one of the people is holding skin from the guy's face, and he says something, and I was just like, oh my god, what's going on? And like you don't remember anything beforehand, and my character died in 30 seconds. Like I saw one of the other characters had a pistol, and I'm like, I want my character. I read his description. He wants that pistol.
Yeah.
And the guy rolled like a 0-1, and I rolled like a 99. He just shot me in the face, and I was dead.
Oh
And then I
man.
got to kind of help John run the scenario, running around the house. But that was so awesome. Just those 30 seconds were better than most games um, altogether. And then for me, if you don't want to know what happens in Impossible Landscapes, cover your ears.
Cover your ears, people,
So
just for the next like
basically,
15 seconds.
basically, Caleb, Ross, a couple other people have been playing Impossible Landscapes. They're Delta Green agents sent to a Delta Green friendly psychiatric facility in
Mhm.
Boston that occasionally sequestered agents who had lost their minds for the group. They went in there one night, and at some point, the staff just stopped responding to them, and they started to get really upset. And the staff was like, "You're going on about that Delta Green delusion again," and they realized they were all in hospital Johnnies, had no weapons,
Uh,
and they were patients in the asylum, and the doctor was just like, "Listen, we can't start on about the conspiracy thing again." And that's when Caleb and those guys were like, "Oh man, how do we get out of here?" So the twist was maybe they're actually not agents at all. Maybe Delta Green doesn't even exist. Maybe
oh.
they were just like, "Oh God, what do we do?"
Which
And
scenario is this? Because I need to write it down and run it.
it's a 4 scenario campaign called Impossible Landscapes, and I'm wrapping up the text now. The text should be available to all backers, just the text, not the
Hmm.
art, before Gen Con. Um, and it's going to be about 192,000 words. It's everything about the King in Yellow. It's the entire history of the King in Yellow, Delta Green's history with the King in Yellow, all the monsters, all the books, and then 4 linked scenarios.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it should be really fun. I'm having a great time writing it. It's scary and stressful and right at the edge of my ability, which is kind of where I like it. I like to get it out there and get really scared about what I'm writing. Is this going to work? So that's kind of when it feels like it's going right.
And set to release at Gen Con?
We'll be pushing the text. So anybody who backed the book on the Delta Green Kickstarter will probably get a PDF of just the raw text
Mm-hmm.
by Gen Con.
Okay, excellent, excellent.
Yeah. So as far as the finished book, I still have to paint everything. So I've got about 5 illustrations out of the 40 I have to do for it. So it'll take a little while. The cover's done. The maps are not done. These things take a long time, but we have this long standing. I don't know if you've ever seen that old wine commercial. We will serve no wine before it's time.
Yeah, yep, yep.
We just don't want to do that. We don't. A release is forever, and if we release it and it's just not great, we're lowering the total quality of Delta Green down, and we just don't want to do
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, as someone who goes to Kickstarter a lot, I always appreciate just kind of upfront saying, we're gonna put all the time we need to make this perfect. As long
that.
as the company continues to communicate,
Yeah,
throughout it. I don't. Fans really love just having that final when you open up the box and you smell
yeah,
it and.
yeah. We're really lucky with our fans too. They've come to kind of expect a level of absurd quality from us, and we try really hard to make that mark. And if we can't, we will wait and try and figure out how to get it over that mark, as opposed to just kind of rushing it out. So, like the Delta Green Core box set, we're super proud of that because we died over that book. We literally, like, I cut Shane open and he stabbed me in the neck. We bled all over that book.
So much violence.
It's just a lot. Like, you don't know the amount of emotional violence that went into that book, of me and Shane just yelling at each other.
Whew.
But it feels right now to us, and we can look back on it and not worry about it, not go, oh hell, we dropped the ball there. We feel pretty good about 99% of it, which is
Yeah.
a rare feeling in publishing. Usually, you look back and go, ooh, whoops,
Oh
we
no.
don't really, with all the Delta Green releases in the last kind of big push, they all feel really good to us. So.
That's awesome. I mean, I remember my first time cracking open the Delta Green book, and that was actually during the week of the birth of my child.
Oh wow,
So I was
it's like
in.
a deep connection.
I know, right? It will always be that the book that I opened up while I was waiting to have a spawn. Um,
Oh wow, that's big.
and one
Yeah.
of one of my favorite parts was reading kind of the GM book and all like the notes, and it created such a wonderful world that while I was like reading in the hospital Panera after eating there for like the last 5 days, um, looking around and imagining like are they watching me, like
Yeah,
it brings you into the world.
yeah. We really wanted we wanted that GM book to ooze ideas. We wanted you to, if you were a handler running the game, we never wanted you to go, I wonder what I should run next. You should be like, here are 4,000 ideas just
Yeah,
sitting on the page. So
flip to a page, you're gonna find
yeah,
something.
yeah. There's always some cool thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were really bent on making it accessible. One, so you could read it in kind of a chronological order,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it just hopefully keep expanding in these cool directions. So it's
Yeah,
fun.
definitely. Yeah, it does. Um, so I was, going through your Twitter, Facebook, awesome stuff, and you post a lot about the hobby,
Yeah,
and tips for GMs and players.
yeah.
So for all the fans out there, what is, if you can, what is the greatest advice you have for a player and for a GM?
Okay, so I'll say this high level for GM. All farts at the table are in character. Doesn't matter what you're doing. That's the funniest, best rule I've ever heard. That has gotten like multiple pagan publishing characters killed in Call of Duty campaigns just by accident. No, I'm just kidding.
I like that rule.
It is a pretty funny rule. It always make me laugh. So yeah, player rule. The biggest player rule I can say is um, it's two things. It's trust the game master, and second, um, don't be disruptive. Pay attention.
Hmm.
A lot of players really want to get center stage, and that's awesome. And a good game master will give everybody a chance to kind of have their own center stage moments and kind of shift the focus around.
Hmm.
But that's the game master's kind of call, is like, and then we're going to go to these guys who are breaking into this place. And then we're going to go to this guy who's in the morgue alone. And then we're going to, and it's got to be this kind of ongoing thing. And then for game masters, the big thing, I posted this today, and I really agree with this, which is you have to learn how to say no.
Hmm.
Because so many games I play in for fun, it's endless yeses, and what that leads to is basically nothing.
Yeah.
Conflict is the basis of all these games. It doesn't have to be violent conflict. It can be an argument. It could be trying to work your way around a guard without any physical confrontation. But the minute you're like, "There's no guard," or "You can just walk in," or "The guard doesn't care," that's boring. That doesn't help. That just it doesn't give the player a moment to shine.
Yeah.
And some players will shrink back from that kind of stuff, but they'll eventually come around. They'll start seeing other people have moments that you give to them, and
Hmm.
they'll get jealous and want those moments for themselves. When can I have my shining star moment where I hotwire the car while they're shooting at us? And you know, So that's another kind of note on trust there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough one. But yeah, those are the two big ones.
Excellent, excellent. So I am gonna hop back in a very kind of like disambobulated way, because
No
you
worries.
talked about one of your favorite moments, and
Yeah.
to clarify, were people dressed up?
Oh, in the
The
John Hines thing.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But they were doing. John was doing these weird things back then. He did something called Grace Under Pressure. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you know that one.
Mm-mm.
Oh, that was awesome. They basically they had like a mini sub. It was like a mini sub setup, but basically they would tape off areas in like a gymnasium, turn off all the lights. Everybody would have a glow stick.
Oh,
You know,
that sounds
you
awesome.
had little radios, and people would play the deep ones and grab people. You know, it's kind of a lark kind of thing. So he was into that at the time, and he was kind of carrying it across to this other scenario, which was much easier to run than Grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think we were wearing jumpsuits. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure we were. It
Uh,
was 1992 or something like that. So just to give you an idea of how old
yeah.
I am.
It's okay. That's interesting because a lot of people who watch this show, and myself, I come from a LARP and Boffer
Oh
LARP background, and then went to tabletop.
yeah,
So hearing that is amazing, especially all the scenarios and fun you guys must have had with that.
oh yeah. No, we the best Call of Cthulhu Delta Green stuff I've ever played has always been with John Tyne, Scott Clancy, Blair Reynolds, John Crow, all the old pagan publishing crew in Seattle. We just played monstrous amounts of that game, and it was always hysterical fun. Even when totally serious situations were going on in the game, we're all cackling and
Hmm.
laughing outside of the game. You're just like, oh, my sheriff is gonna die. He doesn't know it's a Thakra. You know, like I totally know, but I can't tell him. Yeah, it's great fun. In fact, there's a movie called was it Bone Tomahawk? Have you seen
No, I haven't.
Kurt Russell, that kind of stuff? That is the closest visual representation to a pagan publishing Call of Cthulhu scenario I've ever seen. I'd be the dandy. John Tynes is like the horrible sheriff's deputy.
Hmm.
And all the characters are very clearly one of the pagan publishing crew, and everything goes horribly wrong. Um,
That
and
sounds
it's just
awesome.
totally like, wow, this looks just like our game. Yeah,
Oh, that sounds amazing.
yeah.
So, going back forward again. So
Sure,
when
you go
you
go in any
we're
direction.
going everywhere.
Yeah.
So when you aren't writing for Arc Dream, what are
Yeah,
you doing?
I'm illustrating for Arc Dream. It's a full time gig. We have more than enough work to go around. But I did 15 years in video games, and I took I had a very clear eye to get out of video games. It's not a very lucrative or safe profession to be in.
Yeah, I mean, just looking
Uh,
at the recent like the boycotts and stuff like that, and the articles, it definitely seems like a tough industry.
yeah, I was never, to be clear, I'm not bitter. I was never fired. I was never let go. I had 15 good years. I
Hmm.
worked at a couple really good companies. But I literally I pitched a AAA game to Activision and made it prototype, which
Hmm.
is it's on PS3 and Xbox. And it was so popular, it made a sequel. But I got a T-shirt out of it, I think, or like a jacket. I literally created the whole thing, me and one other guy, where so that's what you can get out of doing that. In Delta Green, I create Delta Green. I own my concepts. I make a really good living off of it. I keep my fans are directly to me. I don't have to deal with some weird corporate
Yeah.
entity. And it's fantastic. It's just like the best of all possible worlds, and I love it. So yeah, I spent several years in video games aiming to get out of video games, and I saved money and did all of that to kind of move here, which is the middle of Vancouver Island, British Columbia, which is the very far from anywhere civilized. It's a couple hundred miles from Vancouver,
Oh wow.
out on the island, which is this giant. We have wolves and bears, and we're lucky we have decent internet connection.
That's always an important thing to have.
Yeah, yeah.
You-
So Yeah,
You want to
it's
talk about true Eldritch horror, not having
yeah.
internet.
We need good internet to have truly terrifying stuff. But yeah, we love it out here. This was like a we lived me and my wife and my two children. I grew up in New York City. We moved to Seattle. I moved to Seattle. I met her there. We moved to Vancouver proper. We moved to San Francisco. We moved to Seattle. So I've lived in all these cool cities and in the middle of them, literally. And I'm sick to death of cities and ready to be in the middle of
Do
nowhere.
you ever find that it's kind of helpful in the way that you write to kind of be outside of all the noise?
Yeah, yeah. It's been I have a day counter. It's been 918 days since I quit video games and have moved north. And those 918 days have been just the best of my entire creative life. Just because 24/7, I literally get up at 6, I write or paint until 2, go for a big walk, come back, write some more until about 5. The kids and I hang out, and then it's a day every day. It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, one of our the people on the chat says I don't even have decent internet connection, and they live in Maryland.
yeah, yeah. Something you'll learn about the U.S. The little infrastructure spending bills don't really do anything if they're just handing it off to telecoms.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, they'll shortchange you.
hmm But that sounds awesome. Just being in Vancouver and everything. I know for me it
That's
was
great.
the opposite. I went from a small town, and then now I live in the DC area.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, you head away from what you grew up with.
hmm
I guess is the best way to describe. I grew up in New York, so like New York subway, people getting shot. Like I grew up in New York before it was clean and nice.
Yeah. Oh man, I could imagine.
Yeah, it was disgusting. Like my earliest memory is me and my dad on the train, and my dad saying, don't look at the man, and the man's peeing like on the train, like just on the floor of the train. And I
Oh
was like
dear.
4 or 5, and I'm like, why is he peeing? We're drawn away from things. We don't want to be where we grew up. Is
hmm
kind of the goal of every person I know unconsciously is kind of like, I'm going to the big city or I'm going to the middle of nowhere. And I'm definitely a middle of nowhere kind of guy. Like,
What so you talk about going elsewhere from where you came from.
yeah,
Um was your family, if you don't mind talking about
no,
it,
no, no worries.
were they like heavy geeks, nerds? Were they into Nope.
No, nope, nope, nope. My dad is like the straight laced kind of dad. How did I describe it? I said something to my wife the other day. It felt really true. They don't do anything creative or writing or art or anything really. Like my great granddad was an artist. My granddad could draw pretty well. My
Mhm.
dad had a talent for drawing, but never really took it seriously. But what did I say to my wife? I felt like a chimpanzee raised by a family of golden retrievers. They're all very kind,
Mhm.
they all mean really well, and they really want what's best for you, and they will literally do anything for you. But you're like, I have a thumb and I can open a door, and the golden retriever's like, what? Like, they literally like, you can't draw comic books for money. You can't paint cards for money. You can't. How can you? Why are you playing this stupid dragons game all the time? You'll never make money at that. And now it's like,
Look at it. It did.
I totally did. And in fact, it's even worse. If I had listened to anything they had suggested, I would be a miserable failure. I would, have a horrible mid-level degree that got me nothing. That I would be in like five-figure debt for. So it's a tough choice. I had some really lucky breaks early on in my career that I was lucky enough to pay attention to and
Mhm.
take. And there's a ton of luck involved, but there's also being able to kind of, when you see the thing appear, being able to jump on that is like a huge thing. And a lot of people are kind of, there's a really popular in my generation,
Mhm.
I don't know, younger, there's a really popular self-deprecation is a really popular thing, like, oh, I suck. That
Yeah.
I would recommend heavily against that under any circumstances. It doesn't get you anything. It doesn't make you seem likable. It doesn't help your likability. And people who are looking for skilled art, are looking for someone who's like, I got this to a certain degree. They don't want ego, but
Yeah.
they want, they want a specialized guy or gal's gonna get the stuff done, right? They're a
Yeah.
little scared if you're like, yeah, probably it's gonna suck. Like they don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still an issue my generation
Is
faces
it?
as well. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first started streaming, and it hasn't been that long ago. My first stream, my child had a blowout right over me. So I was like, all right, I guess my streams are just going to be categorized as shit. So.
No, I mean, like, you got to roll with whatever comes along. But
Exactly. Yeah. It's I think the whole process you kind of you learn some self-love cuz
yeah,
it's what you need.
yeah, you have to support yourself. There's also a darker way to look at it, which is what was it? You ever see Band of Brothers?
Yep.
There's a
Yep.
character in there called Spears. He's a real dude. He's absolutely crazy. He does just crazy shit during, like, he literally runs across an entire German occupied town and then comes right back. And
That's ridiculous.
he really did this. And then they're like, how, one guy's terrified, and Spears is like, you're looking at this the wrong way. You're already dead. Once you accept that, you'll be able to do anything I can do.
Yep. Yep.
So when you look at these situations about being embarrassed or worrying about your work, or this is your chance. This is all you've got. And if you put up something crappy, that's, you move on and make something better. I've put up a ton of really awful stuff in my life, um, in the hopes that I could get like kind of one little rung up the ladder. Um, but you just got to keep trying. And I admire people who pay attention to their work and are really serious about it, and really try and get better. And being negative about your work is not a bad thing. Like
Yeah.
whenever I see something I painted 2 years ago, I hate it. I just default, this looks like crap, throw it out. And someone's like, "No, it's my favorite cover." I'm like, I messed up the hand. You can see the hand is all screwed up. But that's learning, as opposed to kind of this kind of self hatred thing.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I'd really recommend creators avoid,
Yeah. And
because it
it
gets in you.
yeah.
It becomes this kind of poison.
Yeah, and it's really nice to see as kind of a creative designer, being able, because I saw on Reddit the other day, a 2009 painting from an artist, and then like a
Yeah,
2019 painting artist, and you see such a huge difference.
yeah. I mean, you're always changing, and this is the this is like the bit that kills people, is that they want the change like right now, and they
Hmm.
don't realize it's this tiny incremental change that's almost impossible to see. It's like
Hmm.
watching a sandstone wall being eaten away by time.
Yeah,
It's time lapse, and you have to kind of come back a measurable amount of time later after a lot of work. And that's the tough part, is the work in between really just sucks. It's not a
yeah,
lot of fun to learn how to draw, someone's hand. But that was 4 years of my life. And, you know, oh, the thumb, the thumb just sucks. Look at the thumb, that's all I did
hmm
24/7 for 4 years. And I could draw a hand doing anything. And, but that works. It sucks. I'll never get that time back. But, at least I can draw a hand now. So
yeah.
that's good.
It's the best part about drawing, it's the hands.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we have a question actually from chat. Determined Nerd says, "What's the worst thing you've put your name on?"
Oh man, that's a tough question. Let me think about this. Probably a mobile game. Probably SpongeBob Moves In. Uh, Now there's two ways to look at that. I'm not a fan of SpongeBob.
Hmm.
Don't hate. I don't need a chain of people going, "How dare you hate SpongeBob?" You had to spend 4 years of your life embroiled in SpongeBob politics. You would hate SpongeBob too.
Yeah,
I
they
was
don't
literally
understand.
going like, "Shut up about SpongeBob! I want to talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender."
Ooh,
Um,
great show.
yeah, and they wouldn't make a game out of it. And I'm like, "You have the game, like, what are you
Oh,
doing?" And they're like, "No, it's all about SpongeBob and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles."
That would have drove me crazy.
Yeah. Oh, it drove me crazy. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So probably SpongeBob moves in, but at the same time, much like there's a movie called Flight of the Phoenix. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Mm-mm.
It's a bomber crashes in the middle of the Sahara Desert in World War II, and the guys botch together a crappy little aircraft that barely makes it out of the middle of the Sahara before it literally like falls apart in the air while they're landing.
Mm-hmm.
That was SpongeBob moves in because like had this huge budget. The first team looked at it and completely botched the entire project, spent three-quarters of the budget, and then they were like, "You have 6 months and this much money.
Oh, jeez.
Make us a mobile social game that," and we were like, "What? Like that's impossible." So there's some dim, horrible pride in landing that awful, distorted, falling apart aircraft outside of the Sahara and going, "I lived.
I did it.
Tell me I didn't get fired because I screwed this up."
Oh man, yeah. South 2012 says 4 years of your life embroiled in SpongeBob politics.
Yes, yes, it's terrible. And then to add insult to injury, if you've ever seen the show Silicon Valley,
Hmm.
that was my life. Like that is not a comedy to me. That is a
Oh
drama.
man.
There's an entire episode based on COPA, the Child Online Privacy and Protection Act,
Hmm.
that was just so startlingly real to me. I had like PTSD flashbacks watching the episode because my entire life was about like, are you recording the child's data? Do you know where they live? Do they have location services turned on? That's an
Oh man.
$80,000 fine. And yeah. So and then I went on to Warner Brothers where I had to work on Harry Potter and the Hobbits and Lego. It was even worse. But yeah, it's looking at all that stuff was just such a grind on your soul. And I was
Yeah.
still writing Delta Green, but it was like my escape at the time.
It might have even inspired just coming from that
Yeah.
horribleness.
The horrible. You ever read this kind of existential horror? It all
Uh,
comes from mobile social gaming in San Francisco.
That's funny. I was on the other side of it. I worked for a translation company and MOBAs. All the mobile games all the time would send us their stuff, and they always want can you translate
Yeah.
these thousands of words, but we'll give you like $20 for it. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, and it's all got to fit in this little bubble with
yeah,
22 characters.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
German translation is like one word is 38 characters.
Hmm.
It just goes off the screen. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Oh, that was fun. I know all about that.
don't want to brush shoulders with that industry again.
No, it's terrible.
So awesome. We talked a little bit or a lot actually about kind of your journey from the golden retriever
Family.
family to now office in Vancouver, near Vancouver.
Vancouver
Um,
Island, yeah.
um, well, how would you describe kind of the journey other than kind of soul sucking in some
Oh,
ways?
you mean through video games? Or just the travel from 1990, say, to now?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the early 90s was mostly about RPGs and card games. So I became involved with Magic the Gathering. I hired a guy, a very unusual guy we often called the Big Swede, Jesper Meerfors, to do a bunch of art for the Unspeakable Oath in the 90s. And this is another lucky thing. Jesper turned out to be the art director for a little company called Wizards of the Coast. You might have heard of.
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, they were working on this really stupid card game called Magic. So I got to do a bunch of art for Magic because I was like, sure, why not? And that was awesome and just changed my life in a great way. So basically, Wizards did really well. Magic did really well, obviously.
Oh
And
yeah.
they paid their artists really, really well. We all got royalties based on sales, and I was clever enough to take all that money and put it into real estate in Vancouver. So me and my wife moved to Vancouver, BC, in about 2000, when Wizards was sold to Hasbro, 99. And then I started working on video games there. and then, for about 15 years in video games, I went all over the place and did a ton of video game stuff.
Hmm.
And that was definitely soul sucking and horrible. But at the same time, it was awesome. And I got to meet incredible people. I got to meet Joe Rowling and George R. R. Martin and,
Oh.
uh, who I kind of met before at Gen Con, strangely enough. Um, and, all these really amazing creators who all universally were just awesome.
Hmm.
It was never them that were the problem. It was always some lower level cog between me and the target,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
producer or something. And I was putting in 60 and 70-hour weeks and never leaving the office, and it was miserable. And I was being paid far more than I had ever imagined I would ever be paid for any human activity. Like, you're like, land on the moon, this should be your salary. I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. But it was San Francisco, right? So all that money vanished. Trying to keep my kids in school. If you didn't send your kid to private school, they get bused 2 hours outside of the city
Oh,
every day.
jeez.
So all that money vanished as quickly as you could make it, and just felt like my life was vanishing. It was just going away, and I wasn't even there. I was like, so yeah, 15 years of my life. About 7 of them were really good in video games, and the rest were mobile and very, very stressful, very, very dark, very, very fast paced.
Hmm.
I hardly even remember them. Um, so, and then about 10 years, 11 years in, I just basically said to the wife that I'm building my escape hatch right now. This is what we're going to be doing.
Hmm.
And where do you want to end up? And we talked about it and kind of decided on Vancouver Island. Um, and in all honesty, that was supposed to happen about a year or two later than it did happen. And it was just because Trump. I just said, sorry if I'm upsetting anybody. I don't really care.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. But yeah, in July, the year before, I said, this guy's a real threat. My wife didn't believe it. My in laws didn't believe it. My parents didn't. And when he won, we were already in British Columbia. I landed in British Columbia on October 31st, 2016, and knowing full well he was going to win, and no one believed me. And I'm so glad I came up here.
I bet. I've always wanted to. I went to Toronto and I've been to another city in Canada that I forget. And it's always been a place I've adored. And
Yeah, it's very fun. Very nice place. People are very kind in general. But more importantly, it's not like the central premise of America seems to be profit based these
yep.
days, and that's a really dark thing, and it really kind of seeps into everything. And when you come up here, it's things just kind of work, and people aren't like a great example here. When we first moved here, there was a contest on the island to become the host town for a Syrian family,
Hmm.
and every town on the island like tried their damnedest to get we want to host these people, and I was just
Ah,
imagining what
that's good.
it's like in the States. And the family's totally integrated. you know, they've set up a little shop, everybody knows them, they've learned English pretty well, they're trying
Oh,
to
that's
learn
really
more,
good.
and everybody's just kind of like, this is awesome, right? This is the way it's supposed to be, and they're
It
super nice.
is.
And I was just trying to imagine what that would be like in the States. And even if it was in a really progressive area like Seattle, or I imagine there'd be protests, there'd be a lot of negative stuff floating around. What if they're gonna do that? And it just never occurred here. It was literally, we went to a pizza place because we had nothing to eat. Like, we literally had nothing, no
Yeah.
cutlery or anything in our house. And there's this little thing on the wall, and we're like, what's this? And the woman's like, oh, that's really interesting. We're trying to host a Syrian family, and we really hope Parksville wins. And I was like, wait, so this is a super positive thing? And she's like, yeah, you put in money in here. And we're like, they were putting money in
Yeah.
here. It was great. So I really appreciate stuff like that. We had a really nice moment on Canada Day, which is July 1st,
Hmm.
um, where a car broke down in a highway in front of us in kind of a traffic jam. And it was an old man in a car, and he was basically like really old, in his 90s. He could barely get out of the car. and everybody just kind of went into park, put on their emergency lights, and everybody ran out and got together and pushed the truck over to the side, and then
Uh,
two guys just hung out with him and called road services, and the road services showed up, and I was just like, no one was screaming, no one, like, it was rush hour, no one was ready to kill anybody, there was no violence, there was no, like, and I don't know what the disconnect is. I don't know why you go 2 hours south, and if that happened in Bothell or something, there'd be some guy swearing at you, laying
yeah.
on the corner.
Yeah, it's just I think it's all the negativity. I mean, I've
Yeah,
worked in a bunch of nonprofits that helped people seeking asylum kind of
yeah,
integrate into America and in the U.S. And it was tough. I There was lots of times at the DMV where I heard even from employees just these words that were just so unkind.
yeah. I
And
don't understand. Yeah, it might be the negativity. I mean, the other big thing that we noticed moving up here is it's not a fear-based media economy
hmm
here. So the news isn't literally like you're already dead, your children are being murdered, there's poison in your food. Like, it's literally like we have a slight problem where there's sewage coming out of this thing, and we're going to try and figure it out. Or, that would be like a nightmare
yeah,
material. Oh my,
yeah.
or like, they're putting in speed bumps at the library. These are the news things you see. Like, what was the joke article? It wasn't even a joke. It was like otter surprises cat, but they become fast friends. That was the cover of the newspaper.
Oh, that's
Like,
so
I
adorable.
was just like, okay, this is where we need to be. But yeah, and the other thing is, like, people don't worry here about medical,
Oh,
and it's,
that's huge.
for me in the States, like when I was independently employed, it was so expensive.
Fair.
Like, I was paying
Yeah.
so much money for four people in Seattle to have a decent plan. It was half my income.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really hard, and that can eat at you. And I remember being so incredibly bitter about it, and so, like, and it's in me. It's like
hmm
ready to rage. So I can understand it. It's not like some magical thing. You cross the border and you're like happy and stuff, but it's removing weights from your daily life really changes who people are fundamentally.
Yeah. Definitely. I feel like we can kind of tag the end of the stream as like Code of Canada.
Well,
Sponsored by Canadian Tourism.
you'd be welcome. It's a wonderful place. But yeah, if you want to talk about more about gaming, I'm into that too.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I love talking about all these things. And for people watching, if you guys have questions, any and everything, everything's on the table.
Yep.
Feel free, and we'll definitely swing that in. Which actually comes to a friend of mine who played Delta Green Monday with us.
Oh, cool.
First, he says he is a huge fanboy,
Oh, cool. Hey,
his name is Alex.
hey,
So
Alex.
hey, Alex. Um, but he wanted to know how much of your stories are based on real, weird, or creepy events that you've either been through or heard or what have you.
I'm almost none of them. They're just me. They're me trying to creep me out. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
I'm like, whenever when I wrote Music from a Darkened Room, are they done with it? Do they know what happens?
They are. So we had this interesting thing where I was like, you guys should probably investigate, but they were so excited about the house itself that
Right?
they just went into every room and they were just like, I want to touch everything.
Jesus. Oh, well,
So
that's a way to do it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. So I don't know what to reference then. I don't want to ruin the scenario. I don't want to give away anything. But usually it's me trying to creep me out. So we'll sit in the dark in the basement typing something about some. Oh, it's a clown and he's coming to get like, and be like, I don't like that. And then I'll kind of write that down and know that's a very if I feel scared,
Mhm.
that's usually a decent indicator. It'll pique someone's interest at least, and hopefully scare them too.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah, so
imagine you like in your office there, which with all the lights turned off and just in your
yeah, yeah, I do. I turn off all the lights and I just sit at these monitors. And then the other thing I'll say is I read a lot of history as well. So I just wrote something on something called the Gowie shape,
Hmm.
which is Isabel. I think it's Isabel Gowie. It was like a real witch. So I read about that, and then I created this item that's kind of based on this other vague story, and then just took it in its own direction. So whenever I do research, if I'm researching, if, for example, if I research pre-Incan culture,
Hmm.
it's real.
Yeah.
I don't just kind of go like whatever, it's blue guys, and I actually look it up, and it's the Chavin people, and
Hmm.
they're from this date to this date, and here's what their jewelry might look like. And
Interesting.
so I try and really reference things really tightly to reality, because
Hmm.
Delta Green is kind of about integrating really creepy ideas and meshing it to
Hmm.
history in a way that's believable and kind of like, oh, maybe that happened.
Interesting.
So much so, yeah. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So like for those kind of wanting to write horror in any
Yeah.
platform, would you recommend kind of going through history, or do you also like watch scary movies or read
Oh,
scary things?
I love horror movies, but I'm very picky.
Ooh.
There are. I'm super picky. I mean, I've seen everything under the sun. I mean, one of the great things that my job affords me is the ability to just have a movie running while
Yep.
I'm typing, and I can watch everything. Um, so I'll have a movie running literally my whole workday. There's usually a movie or a TV series running, or music. Um, but the movies I will recommend,
Yes, that's what I was gonna ask.
I will recommend several movies right now. The Exorcist Part 3
Exorcist Part 3.
is a deeply underrated movie. It is the only movie I have ever been in the movie theater where the entire audience stood up in kind of a freak out moment. And it's a scene that has since become famous among horror aficionados. It's called the hallway scene. If you look up Exorcist 3 hallway scene and just watch um, that will cover it. But it's a beautifully written movie as well. The dialogue is amazing.
Hmm.
The actors are amazing. It's George C. Scott and a bunch of other really Brad Dourif, and it's a nice little sequel to The Exorcist, but it's kind of its own thing. Skip Exorcist 2 by all means. Never
Just
watch
go past it.
I really liked Hereditary. Really creeped me out, and I haven't seen anything quite like that. Beautifully put together. There's another movie that I saw about ritual magic called A Dark Song,
Oh,
which was
yeah, I've not
which,
heard of
which
that one.
was which was a wonderful film about kind of classical demon-based magic, but realistic, and it's very very creepy. Very builds to this wonderful crescendo. Trying to think of all the horror films, and the most Delta Green movie I've ever seen is a movie called Absentia,
Sencha.
uh, which is a very odd missing persons movie, and it's very very clever and very it's just beautifully put together. If I had to, God, what is that movie called? Yeah, so I'd say those are really strong films for me. There are other films that really kind of ring back to Delta Green. Primer is one of
Hmm.
them. Um, it, Films like that just kind of seem real and then kind of just go off into this weird
Yeah.
space where there are these rules that you're not fully certain of. Feels very Delta Green. And then, this is it. Uh, the most Delta Green emotional movie I've ever seen, the thing that feels like Delta Green, is a movie called Blue Ruin.
Blue Ruin.
Yeah, and Blue Ruin is it's about a homeless man who discovers that the person who killed his mother and father, which kind of drove him into mental illness and homelessness,
Hmm.
has been released, and he decides he's going to go home, clean himself up, and kill that man. And it's just an emotional, and he's just a normal guy. He's not Rambo. He's
Yeah.
not, and it's just a very deep, dark look at this person trying to be something he's really not.
Yeah.
And it's really dark. But it's all about relationships between him and his sister. So the Bond rules in Delta Green are very front and
Yeah.
center. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, so if you put a supernatural element in that movie, that would be Delta Green exactly. It's all about personal disintegration.
Yeah.
Uh, so
So how about the kind of the movies that are coming out in theaters the last like couple years
Yeah,
in terms of Jordan Peele's movies, the
yeah. No,
It series.
I loved Get Out. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I haven't seen Us yet, but I've heard it's quite good.
It is really good.
But I love Get Out, and I love the new Twilight Zone.
I have
Feels
yet to watch it. I really want to.
really, really good. And he gets it. He's completely clued into what the Twilight Zone should be from moment one. And there's always a deep seated worry. There's always like, oh, is it going to be the right? And it's perfect. But I get the feeling he's kind of like that on a lot of things. Because Get Out was just so amazingly well done. But I have to see Us. Trying to think of other horror stuff I've seen recently. You asked about one other thing. What was it?
It.
Oh, It Part One. While I enjoyed the kids and the town and the clown,
Mm-hmm.
I found absolutely nothing in it scary.
Mm.
Not even the slightest bit scary.
Ooh.
It was kind of like, oh, now having said that, It Part Two, just the preview
It's horrific, isn't it?
scared the bejesus out of me,
Oh.
and I went, yes, that's it. That's what I want. The first movie felt flat to
Mm-hmm.
me, horror wise. There were no real crescendos of horror. That second, the 2 minute and 56-second preview was scarier than the whole It movie.
It was. Oh.
I was just, oh, that blew me away. So I was like, I'm in. I mean, I was still in. I love Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
He's a god. So
Agreed.
yeah, when I
Yeah.
was growing up, one of the first horror books I ever read was when I was 10, Salem's Lot, and it's a vampires take over a small New England town.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing Stephen King book. Scared the fuck out of me when I was a kid. I would stay up at night worrying at the window, like what's gonna come and knock on the window.
Those are
So
the
yeah,
best times.
love his stuff. And actually, recently he wrote a Lovecraftian book called Revival, which is
Interesting.
also quite good. Um, it involves De Vermis Mysterious, one of the classic Lovecraft books. The mysteries of the worm is the central kind of theme in this book. Really well done, really creepy, just classic King. Trying to think horror wise, what did I watch most recently that I liked? Black Summer on Netflix.
Black Summer.
It's a crazy, over the top look at a zombie apocalypse in a way that every other TV show just fails to kind of touch on, which is everybody always seems so calm. Everything is just so clean and nice, and it's kind of like, yeah, you think if this was America and there were fast zombies
Oh,
running around,
jeez, everyone.
things would be a lot worse. Like, there would be a lot of, like, let's say morally reprehensible things going on than the average episode of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
That would be like every big twist in The Walking Dead. It would be like that 24/7 for several years before everyone was dead.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like to me. And Black Summer is much more of a realistic social look at what might happen there.
Ooh.
And it's I think an 8 episode or 10 episode series.
Yeah, I definitely saw that. It was something I was very curious about.
It's on Netflix, and I was not expecting anything from it, which might be why I enjoyed it so much.
Mhm.
After the first episode, I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And there was another channel. What is it? Channel Zero? Is that what it shows? They canceled it. There's a sci-fi network show called Channel Zero, and every season is kind of a theme, and they had a great theme called No End House, and that creeped the hell out of me. And it was basically about a pop-up haunted house that just appears in neighborhoods. And what happens is the protagonists go into this pitch black house that just appears at the end of the street in a neighborhood as like a art exhibit or something. And they go in, and after a while, after they come out, they realize they never left. They're still in the
Oh,
house.
really? What is this called? I'm writing this down too.
It's called Channel Zero No End House, and I think it's season 2 of Channel Zero, and it creeps the heck out of me because it just went off in these surreal directions, and they just went with it. They're just kind of like, this is what's happening now, and you're like, oh my god. I like stuff that'll do that for me. That'll really surprise me. So worth
Definitely,
checking.
yeah. Yeah, I now have a whole list that will no doubt keep me busy for the next couple
Yeah,
weeks,
yeah.
as well as everyone else.
Exorcist 3, I can't recommend that one enough. It's just beautifully written. The book is called Legion. It's by William Peter Blatty, the guy who wrote The Exorcist. It's the sequel to The Exorcist.
Hmm.
And the book is even creepier. The book
Ah,
keeps me up at night. That book.
those are the best books.
Yes, I love that book.
All right, so we are gonna hop all the way from the horror genre, taking a long plane. Though I do want to comment, we have South 2012 loved Hereditary. Thought it
Okay.
was incredible.
Yes.
And Cenobite is happy to hear that someone else has a love for Absentia.
Oh, yeah, I love it. It's on Netflix, I think. Totally worth watching. Great film.
It's definitely something I'll have to check out. So your favorite non Cthulhu RPG,
Ah,
and I'm gonna throw in another tag, non horror.
non-horror. Oh, this is probably gonna sound weird. The Marvel superhero system. So the Phase Rip
Yeah,
1986 Jeff Grubb Marvel superhero system. Just because it so handedly did Marvel superheroes. I remember thinking this would be impossible, and Jeff Grubb just kind of was like, "Hey, check this out," just like literally like pow, and it was perfect. It was like this totally works. Spider-Man can beat. It's like seemed totally balanced, and you can make
yeah,
up characters, and we were looking for something like that, and it's probably the most fun I've had, kind of fooling around with making my own characters
interesting.
in an independent way. So,
Yeah,
and it's just a beautiful system.
awesome. I actually think I might have that in a box.
Yeah, it's the one with the green, yellow, red outcomes on a kind of a chart.
Yeah, yeah,
Everybody has a rank. I have amazing strength, or typical strength, or poor strength.
interesting. We should probably have to run that game on the show sometime.
It's really fun. And Jeff Grubb's a really fun guy, cool guy.
Excellent. So I had a question from one of the people watching sent
Sure.
earlier. They wanted to know if you had any advice for kind of like the average civilians as to how to play Delta Green when it's kind of very, you're playing FBI, CIA, Navy,
Right.
military.
You mean like character advice or like
Yeah,
game advice?
character advice. For people who are
Uh,
very much outside that world.
right. Well, I mean, we tried really hard to kind of bake a lot of like go-to information in a
Hmm.
player's guide. So in the agent's handbook, it'll literally say, what are the powers of a law enforcement official, and it'll give you kind of a breakdown
Yeah.
in a way, and it's built. There's a reason we split the agent's book and the handler's book the way we did, because we want the agents. We want you to be able to hand this out at the table, and the guy goes, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is kind of what I can do." So I would say the biggest thing is look at that section of the book, which is like, what are the powers of law enforcement officials? And it'll give you a really clear idea. The second thing I'll say is it's kind of the GM's job to step in
Hmm.
when your player is trying to get the character to do something that the GM knows the character should not do,
Hmm.
and that the character himself or herself should know not to do. I'm an FBI agent. I know I can't shoot the guy in the head and
Yeah.
dump him in a ditch. If you're going to do that, the GM should probably step in at some point and go, "Hey, listen, you can do this, but what's likely to happen is they're going to find the bullet. They're going to figure out it's a federal pistol. They're going to find the registration on the pistol, the
Yeah.
IDs. They're going to come for you. They're going to find your gun was fired. They're going to find burn on your arm. You're going to go to jail for 25 years." Things like that. And then it'll probably make the player think twice. It'll build a little rule into their head to go like,
Yeah.
how badly do I want this? Is this a good idea? So it's a two-sided thing. It's like the player familiarizing themselves to the summary on law enforcement powers, and the handler kind of paying attention and pushing back a little bit when a player goes to overstep the bounds of something that's going to kind of put their agent in danger of being
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, I totally missed this. But Rilo Cloudseeker, thank you for the bits. We really appreciate it.
Oh, cool. No problem.
Yeah, he that was actually one of the players from
Oh,
Monday's Delta Green.
cool.
Played a person kind of focused on computers and such. It was very interesting. He did a
Oh,
good job.
nice. Cool. They had fun.
Oh yeah, a lot of fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. 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 That's
Oh
like the ultimate goal.
oh yeah, yeah. As long as everyone has fun, we can
Yeah. Oh, it's
sleep.
a win. Yeah.
All right, so we are going to kind of cut to a piece of a painting you just did.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
everyone
Which
gets.
one?
Let me.
I'm not watching the stream, so you guys
Yeah.
go ahead.
So it is the "May Everything Come True."
Oh, yeah. That's from Stalker. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen Stalker. Stalker is a wonderful, weird, surreal Andrei Tarkovsky film. He did Solaris, and it's based on a story called Roadside Picnic, which is a very famous uh, science fiction story. So yeah, I often paint. In the last 2 years, I've been painting commission paintings for people.
Oh.
So they'll basically go, I really like this scene in a movie, and I
Mhm.
say, I'll cost you this much, and I'll make you an oil painting of it. And it's been pretty brisk business. It's been doing really well. Let me see if I can show you one of the oil paintings. Hang
Oh
on.
yeah, that'd be great.
I don't know if you can see this.
Yes. All right. Perfect. Yeah.
So this is Charlize Theron from Mad Max,
Wow. Yeah, you can
and then,
see the detail in that.
yeah, it's an oil painting, so kind of
Whew.
crazy. But yeah, anyway, I did this for a commission. Yeah, so yeah, I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and it's quite fun. I really enjoy it. It takes my mind off stuff, and
Yeah.
it's a
Kind of
really
nice
slow,
break.
deliberate product. It's kind of like I'm gonna sit down and paint someone's cheek for 4 hours.
How long did it take you to finish that one?
Oh, 2 days, something like that. So 8-hour days, maybe. So 16 hours, probably. You,
So
you, sorry,
it's
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you get faster and faster the
Mm,
more you do it.
yeah.
So
So like that was a very detailed piece right there, and very based on kind of like the real. While the "May Everything Come True" kind of has a
yeah,
very almost surrealist feel to it with the rolling.
really dreamy. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have, or do you find that as you're kind of in this time expanding kind of the genres you're going into concerning art?
No, art for me. I mean, this is the thing. I gave an interview not too long ago where I said something really upsetting, and I'll say it now again. Art is really, really, really hard, and writing is really, really, really easy. Writing is like, here are the 12 rules.
Mhm.
Don't break these rules. If you have something interesting to say and you don't break those rules, you're set. And art is like, bleed onto this page. You failed. Try again. Bleed on. And you do this over and over again. It's hell in a basket. And I had an argument with a friend who was a professional artist, and he was like, "That's bullshit. Writing's just as hard." And I said, um, okay, imagine a woman sitting at her portable computer
Mhm.
in a coffee house. The table's uneven. It's raining outside. It's near dusk, and the water's streaking the window, and the car lights are going by in this blur. There's a cat asleep on her feet. And I said, "Now you go paint that." And he went, "God damn it."
It's
Um,
tough.
it's really hard. So there's like for me, art is moving art to be something I do for fun and kind of this like, uplifting activity has been very empowering, while writing has become kind of the core, um, my core employment.
Yeah.
So that's work. I go bang, 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 and when I'm painting, it's just kind of like I'm going crazy and painting, and it's fun. But it used to be my job. So it
Mhm.
used to be kind of, I got to paint like four faces and three ducks. And
Oh,
Be
jeez.
miserable. It used to be this ass dragging activity, and now it's just kind of like cool. I get to paint. So
Do you ever hope, like, I don't know, later in your career that you can just paint and do kind of like these commissions and just paint for fun?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm almost there. The Delta Green stuff, I love
Hmm.
painting monsters. So that never gets old. Like when I'm like, I'm gonna paint like a giant bug with a thing coming out of his mouth eating this guy. I love that stuff. So I do that anyway. I do it for free. So even when I was retired, I'd still be painting Lovecraftian beasts, doing stuff.
Awesome. All right, we're going to hop into another image, and this is concerning the control group, which is just got released on drive-through RPG.
Oh, was that the cover? The guy with the gas mask
Yep,
holding his
yep. Need to move myself away. I have inserted myself behind every picture that I have.
No, no worries. That image, I got a lot of emails about that image.
So did you, was is this made by you?
Yeah, yeah, I painted that. Yeah.
Whew. All right, what made you come up with this?
I wanted something that made you feel really uneasy, and you didn't really know what was going on, but at the same time, you could tell something bad was going on, with the implication that they were trying to do something kind of for the greater good. It almost looks like I wanted like a quarantine look,
Yeah.
um, and he's holding a little kid's teddy bear, um, and I just wanted it to be like, you're next. Come on in. Like, cool. And you have no idea what's going on. So, and Greg Stolze, the author, had written something called "Sick Again" in there, which is about this disease that kind of breaks out in a small town.
Hmm.
So I wanted to kind of play off that a little bit. But yeah, I wanted you to feel very uncomfortable looking at the image.
Yeah,
Not
it made me feel uncomfortable.
oh good.
The
And
teddy bear, the vest, and really kind of like the depth of the piece. Like you can see very far down there in the
yeah,
light in there and the darkness
yeah,
in between.
yeah. I just wanted to feel really uncertain and creepy. It seems to have worked. Like I said, when it went live, I got a ton of emails going like, "What's going on? And who's this? Where's the
What's happening?
yeah? Why are you doing this?" So it's funny.
Like, welcome to Delta Green.
Yeah, yeah. Happy world.
So this is just came out. Drive through RPG. I will actually link it for those who are interested
Yeah.
in buying it, checking it out. I definitely encourage doing so, um, and
So I
hopefully
can,
we'll be able to
yeah,
run maybe a scenario from there soon.
yeah. If you want me to tell you a little bit about the scenarios, they're
Yes,
quite
definitely.
yeah. It's a bunch of scenarios by Greg Stolze, and Greg is just a famous designer. Has written a bunch of stuff. He wrote Unknown Armies and uh, you
Yeah, I
know
just got a hand of unknown
yeah,
armies.
great
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 book.
guy. And he wrote a bunch of these introductory scenarios to Delta Green along with Shane Ivey, and they basically are designed to create Delta Green agents. Each scenario, it's kind of like
Oof.
you're not exposed to Delta Green yet, and after this mission, you're gonna be. And then the last one is kind of like get all the survivors together and run an op. You're all in Delta Green now. Here, go do this. So it's very much a setup to get into Delta Green. And there, I'm trying to think of the scenarios. There's one space shuttle, like a classified space shuttle launch to deal with a majestic satellite, um, and where you're literally astronauts on the space shuttle,
Ooh.
Air Force astronauts working on one of the classified shuttle flights before
Mhm.
the program stopped. There's Sick Again, which is about a little disease that pops up in an Arizona town and starts killing off everybody, and may or may not be from someone from some other place or time. I don't want to give away too much on that. Let me see which other ones. Gotta remember this. There's one about a weird cult, which has its own. This is really cool. It's got its own little cult flyer that you can
Oh,
hand out. It's like join the.
I love
And
handouts.
yeah, hang on. So I'm looking up this. I want to see what the last one is. I want to make sure I get it right. The reviews are doing pretty well, so that's cool. Um, Sick Again, Wormwood Arena. Night Visions is you play. I believe you're in a group of army in Afghanistan in
Mm-hmm.
2011, going to an isolated valley to trade with a kind of an insular tribe that owns this little dammed-in valley, um, and are known to steal people from the surrounding area. And you're trying to kind of buy their love with water purifiers and fans and things like that, and they're just not at all what they seem to be. So that one is pretty cool. But basically, each of these builds to Wormwood, and then in Wormwood Arena, the kind of the last scenario, the survivors from the other scenarios, the surviving agents,
Yeah.
that's their first Delta Green operation. So it's a nice intro to the world. It's a good way to feel like you really put in your dues. Of the stories agents go like, I joined Delta Green because of X.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
actually the scenario where that's why you joined Delta Green.
Oh, that's very interesting. Like, I saw it come out and it looked interesting, but now hearing that kind of have that, uh, that's especially when you want to kind of run a campaign, having your players be able to look back on
Yeah,
these scenarios and be like,
and there's not, trust me, there's nothing like having. We have a player, Shane has a player, Amber,
hmm
who her character has been through like 11 operations and is just a shell of a human being. Like, it's literally at like the lowest point you can possibly be and still be playing the game. All of her bonds are shot, her sanity is in the toilet. She's literally just like, okay, let's go do this. And it's there. She can look back and go, yeah, that was the time that thing came out of the mirror, and it's all stories that actually happened to her.
yeah.
So it makes a huge difference at the game table when she's playing with new players, because suddenly she becomes the grizzled old agent. They're like, what do we do? And she's like,
Smoking a cigarette,
yeah,
looking
yeah,
wistfully out the window.
it really kind of brings a lot to the table, which is cool. So
Yeah, it sounds amazing because for most of my experience with kind of Call of Cthulhu or Delta Green have for the most part been one shots. Um,
yeah, campaigns. There's nothing like a campaign. Like, I love Masks of Nyarlathotep is probably my favorite campaign. And I'm, Impossible Landscapes, the campaign I'm writing right now for Delta Green, the first campaign for Delta Green. I'm really trying to I want to hit that level. I'm
yeah,
trying to get near Masks. That's my only goal. So, all the stoppers are coming out, and I'm writing as furiously as I can. But yeah, I love that stuff. And campaign play, you get to see in Delta Green, especially mechanically, you get to see
hmm
the character kind of do this with occasional spikes of like, I did it, and then
then the drop.
yeah, so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about that. That sounds like an amazing book that's coming out, the
Oh, cool.
campaign.
Yeah, well, I'll let you know when the PDF comes out, and I'll send you the text.
Oh, sweet, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it's a source material that I've always been really fascinated by, and having a campaign in this, the more I listen to the benefits of it and definitely the long play, it just sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
it's really kind of built for it, because I mean, players will come and go, like and that works in Delta
hmm
Green. Oh, he's transferred to FBI Quantico. He's by Agent Solace. And then
Yep.
players agents will die, and then you get a new agent, and it changes the entire dynamic. So having this ongoing cell conspiracy really gets kind of a feeling where it's like, yeah, he's not part of G Cell. He just came in here. He's spying on us. You get players, agents turning against other player agents, and it gets dark quick.
The paranoia.
Yeah, no, they're putting like GPS trackers on the other agent's car and making sure he's not kind of like going anywhere he shouldn't be going.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's great. It's
So
really fun.
good, so
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it's really
All right, well, awesome stuff. I mean, that's all the questions in topics I had. I know we kept you longer than
Oh no, it was fun. It was really fun. Anytime.
initially, and it's been a pleasure. Of course, if anyone has a question even after this, I'm sure you can send it to me, and I can forward to Dennis,
Yeah,
and
sure, Mitchell. No problem.
he'll be great to check that out. the drive-through RPG for the Green Control or yeah the Green Control group.
Control group. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get that right. We have the link on the chat. If you are watching on YouTube, it'll also be down below, as well as a link to Delta Green's other websites. They have an amazing, welcoming community. I definitely encourage you to check them out on Reddit, on Facebook. Uh,
Yeah, I love those guys.
yeah,
They're awesome.
everywhere. They were super welcoming, and
I think the other
definitely,
big thing I can mention is
yeah.
need to know. Our introductory material
Hmm.
is pay what you want on RPG Now. It's all the rules, it's 6 agents, and it's an entire scenario for free, basically. And you can just download it on RPG Now at any time. You just go there, look for Need to Know, Delta Green Need to Know, and it'll give you everything you need to run a game or even play a game. And it's all free.
Excellent, and I'll definitely have that link for those watching later on YouTube and whatever. Cause yeah, Delta Green is amazing.
Oh,
I come from a Call of Cthulhu, and finding Delta Green was kind of like it felt for me a step up in terms of the
amazing.
world. So
Amazing.
really
That's great.
appreciate that. I'm
Oh,
trying not to fanboy too much here.
no, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's always nice to hear good things about stuff you work so hard on.
Definitely. So once again, Dennis, thank you so much for
No
spending this
problem. Thanks.
evening with me, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Oh yeah. Thanks, and thanks everybody who stopped by, and all the questions were awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys, and have a lovely evening.
See you guys later.
Bye.